Okay, Anthony, it's all set.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Susquehanna Ethical Society, also known as the Valley. Our humanist-inspired community is dedicated to ethics, social justice, and education. In this space, we seek to nurture the human spirit, imagination, healing, and human progress. Welcome to the Valley.
Oh, thank you, Anthony, for that wonderful welcome this afternoon. And I do want to say this is a bittersweet Sunday. Anthony has been with us for several months, doing an internship to fulfill some of Anthony's requirements with Meadville Lombard Theological School. And officially that came to an end on the 10th. Just a few days ago. But we are certainly, the knowledge that Anthony is going to be with us, many Sundays we hope, and certainly be holding us in his heart. So Anthony, it's not goodbye, it's just, hey, we're going to see you in a different capacity, and do wish you all the best in your process, in your journey. I'd like to invite visitors to put your information in the chat at the bottom of your screen. If you would like to receive any information, newsletters, announcements on what we are doing at SVES, you can put your email address in the chat. The Susquehanna Valley Ethical Society is a community of all walks of life that learns and grows together through shared values, doing good, and nurturing the human spirit. We are a safe and courageous place in which members can build a community of friends, find inspiration and purpose, provide moral education for their children, celebrate seasons and life events, and clarify their world views. And now we'll have some announcements. Phyllis Marquette will do the honors.
Well, hello and welcome again to everybody. Couple things. This past Thursday, the Ethical Action Team delivered over 100 stuffed animals to Haven Homeless Shelter. This Christmas, 75 local children registered in the shelter's annual toy drive will find an adorable stuffed toy based on what we gave them. So that's feels good to know we're helping out. Upcoming this week is our board meeting on Wednesday, December 15th. We meet by Zoom at 6 o'clock. All society members are welcome to attend. If you contact info@susquehannavalleyethicalsociety.org, you can get the link to attend the board meeting. As you know, the winter solstice is coming up and we are in need of some volunteers to do some reading. As someone who speaks regularly, I tell you it's not that scary. So please consider doing a reading. If you're interested, contact Patty at pattyarduini@gmail.com by this Wednesday, December 15th, and let her know if you want to, if you've seen your email, the readings have gone out. So you can let Patty know if you want to pick a particular reading, if you'd like to have her just assign you a reading, or if there's something that you feel that you want to read and share, pass that along to Patty, and she'll take a look at it and give the yay or nay. So speaking of which, next Sunday is the winter solstice program, Sunday the 19th. It is in person at the Heater Center. We will be outdoors at 4:30. So this is later than normal. We're celebrating the darkness. So at 4:30, the winter solstice celebration begins in the Heater Center parking lot. From 5 to 5:30, we'll take a lantern walk through town. So participate in our winter solstice evening program, again at 4:30 to 5:30, when we celebrate winter, community, and moving from darkness towards light. Join us for a celebration of the light in the dark. Starting at the Heater Center parking lot, we'll share in special words, songs, and hot chocolate, always good. Then we'll go for a lantern walk, welcoming the darkest day, the winter solstice. It is fun for all ages and everyone is welcome. You can bring an instrument and join in with music making, and also bring a flashlight or candle to light up the dark. Just a reminder, on Sunday, December 26th and Sunday, January 2nd, we are closed, so there will be no platform on those days. And then we will be back in person on Sunday, January 9th. As long as you're fully vaccinated with your booster shot, you're invited to attend in person at the Heater Center starting on January 9th. And people who aren't fully vaccinated or those who aren't close enough to attend, we welcome you to attend on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Philip.
much. I am Jay Exodus Hooper. I am the consulting leader here at the Susquehanna Society, Ethical Society, and I'm just very grateful to have all of you here. I'm going to invite, and I'm just going to ask, this is a little impromptu, but I mean, what would you expect of me, right? I'm going to ask, Lindsay, would you mind just kind of strumming something kind of soft and meditative for us today?
Sure.
While I do this?
While
And
you
then,
do it?
yeah, and then go into your song.
Okay, I can do
Is
that.
that all right? Okay, cool. Appreciate it. Let us get centered. Let us ground ourselves wherever we are. Let's just get a little grounded. Let's be in this space together. Because when we're in the valley, it's very awesome. It's a really cool experience. We've had some courageous experiences lately. So here at the Susquehanna Valley Ethical Society, we came to deepen our sense of self, have a deeper sense of the meaningfulness of life, shine on the ideas which guide our choices, to give us courage, take the higher path, and to get to know one another over time, and meditation of each one's unique and incomparable worth. Together, yes, together, even in our Zoom space, even in our virtual community, together, we work for a world where love and justice crosses borders. It crosses borders where we affirm the worth and dignity and the uniqueness of every human being. That is why we come together. It's all yours, Lindsay.
The sun burns all around us and the moon cools us down, and the water changes spirits over the ground, and the wind will change direction in a way you can only feel. You may say, what is the big deal? Well, a square has four sides to keep it stable, and the pyramids from time untold has housed the world's most ancient souls, and the circle gives us hope that there's beginning without end. This is no accident, my friends. So it's time for us to listen. Yes, it's time for us to know that we have all the answers, even though they won't tell us so. And we can answer all the questions to the answers that we seek. Yeah, it's all about symbols and degrees. Take me away now, baby. Frequencies and signs, they're all in your mind. Take me away. All right. The sun burns all around us. The sun burns all around us. The circle is the sun, and it sheds its light on everyone. And we are the circle, beginning without end. Symbols and degrees, they will bring you to your knees. All about symbols and degrees, all about the rhythm and the frequencies, all about symbols and degrees. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ha. Symbols and degrees.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Now we will have a poetry reading by our in-house poet, Olivia Busby, who has been awesome in gracing us with unique poems, especially for us and our content and our themes. Olivia, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The poem I'm doing today, I'll just begin with it. I don't have my computer out, so if I go off camera, I'm reading it off my phone. Poems dance and prance across the page and try on forms unconstrained by whiteness and that other way of speaking. Poems change and transform true to their being, and jealousy tells them to have more meaning that they can understand. All that sense that raped lands of soul, the white man's burden is keeping up with what we know without effort. Poems bend and break rules that only hinder the message. So this is a poem. It's called Queerness as Parable. From unfolding as I wanted to, a poem breeds new thought, ways of being unheard of, heard but not listened to. This isn't new. Read quickly and forgotten because the rhythm has been established. But what if a poem switched it up and told you that's not how you do it, but I'd call you a liar because it's written and wrote and it's right in front of you? Poems take trains of thought and contain them in type, ideas we've wrestled with for centuries and bring to new light with words. God is a tyrant. They are love unconditional. God is the Black woman that birthed the world and died in the hospital. God is a fly on the wall of your kitchen, watching you get beat and you could swat him with your hand. God only exists in music from the band you play when you're done with life's bullshit. Poems can say that shit because it might be true. And now that we've gotten rid of the ones who don't want to face it, poems speak truth that filter out those who won't see you. We pain and we yell and we burn this shit down. In a poem, a few words can dig up nihilism and plant rage or curiosity to what else is on the page. Poems are queer. Queerness is poetry we live on stage. And the poems and the performance will change you in every way. This is a poem, The Poetics of Queerness.
My fault. All right. Thank you so much, Olivia. I'm going to ask Lena to read the bio and we'll introduce our song before introduce the song that is coming up, which is a gift for justice.
Hello. Here we go. Justice Renee, born trans female, was raised in a fundamentalist non-denominational home. Her father was a leader in the young earth creation science movement in Utah and surrounding states through the 1980s and 90s. She was taught to shame her trans identity. In her preteens, Justice dedicated her life to Jesus and began ministry work with her church, Awana, and CEF, and gave her first evangelistic message at 13. She went on to get a Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Sciences with a missions emphasis from Frontier School of the Bible, was a youth pastor in Nebraska, worked at Christian camps, and was a cross-world missions candidate preparing for missions in Thailand. In 2009, responding to the housing crisis, she founded Tears of the Patriots, a Tea Party group connected with libertarian and Christian nationalism. Due to a myriad of reasons, Justice Renee re-examined her belief system over a period of 7 years, ending with leaving the church. She opened to her partner about her gender issues in 2019 and transitioned in 2020. Currently, Justice Renee works as a systems engineer at Target, helps amplify diverse voices through Secular North Productions, and raises her 2 kids with her partner in a co-housing community. She shares her story with others to give hope and move communities forward through the din of conversation. She found freedom and acceptance and a path forward from the hate. Stepping out from behind the camera, Justice Renee has opened up in a more public way to build connections with others and amplify the din of conversation. And now we're going to hear a song from one of my favorite bands, originally from New York City, Lucky Chops. The song is called Familiar Places.
Patty, can you enable me to share, please? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this one is from our new album. Thank you for purchasing the vinyl. This one is called Familiar Places. If you feel like dancing, be our guest.
We now turn this portion over to Justice Renee Bowie.
Well, I guess I better come off mute. That might be the first thing, so let me hit that button. Hi, everyone. I'm Justice Renee. My pronouns are she, her. For audio description, I'm a white female in a very cluttered office space in a purple dress. So there we go. I'm going to go... I want to say big thanks to Jay for asking me to speak, and thank you, Patricia, for allowing a person like me to be able to join your congregation and to share and to talk. I'm going to go a little bit off script today. I have a talk that I typically give called Moving Forward, but I really wanted to try something different, which is a conversation about the sincerity of shadows and some of the understanding of the differentials between comparisons and contrast, and as we understand the change. I'll tell you, I've been struggling for 2 weeks on this one of how to connect it because I think it touches into a lot of areas that are difficult for a lot of people. So I hope that you will all bear with me as I go off script. And, you know, I'm going to go a little bit off script because, well, Jay, you kind of inspired me today at FUS. If any of you guys had the chance to watch that, apologize for those on the stream, kind of lost half of that. Okay, well, the sincerity of shadows. As a kid, my parents always had Christian radio on in the background. It wasn't hip Christian radio. It wasn't Amy Grant. It wasn't any of those. It was classical hymns all day long, all day, every day, with fundamentalist teachers preaching on there. But one show that they would throw on there on the regular, I listened to and I enjoyed as a kid, was a program by the name of Unshackled. Unshackled was a story about the contrast between individuals as they changed from this life of debauchery to this amazing now Christian life. And then you had this contrast, this stark comparison between the handling of the two different types. And so you could see the story from one side, and then all of a sudden there was this transformation and this change. But what we noticed as you go through some of those conversations, it is all about the societal connections as they're changing over to being that tie-in. And so that really kind of hits into that comparison of that black and that white, right? When Jay reached out to me, he said, please talk about something that is going from one to the other. Talk about going from darkness to light. He said that the theme for this month is from darkness to light. And so we see from a comparison, right, we have this change and this transformation. And as a kid, as I'd listen to those programs, I'd hear these transformational tales, even if they weren't really that transformative. And I would get excited and I'd go, wow, this is really cool. This is an amazing transformation. This is an absolute change. We see these comparisons as we start to understand society and we understand how comparisons go. We have those transformations. We have, like, for instance, from Republican to Democrat, from fundamentalist to progressive, from conservative to liberal, or from Christian to atheist, or vice versa. And we try and do this comparison and this understanding in how the layout is between these things. We see one picture and we have another picture and we do these contrasts. And that's kind of where my story comes in and where my background comes in. So you heard a little bit about my bio. Who am I? Well, I am Justice Renee. I'm a loud and proud woman, a mama to 2 wonderful kids, infrastructure lead engineer, founder of Secular North, a humanist. But then in contrast, I'm not defined by my former evangelical fundamentalism, being a youth pastor, missions candidate, and founder of the Tea Party group and Christian nationalist. You have that contrast between the two. And a lot of people, when they hear, hey, you're trans, they want to understand there's a contrast. They know that there's a difference. You were one way, and then you were all of a sudden another day, a different way. So you could look at, let's say, a picture of a couple years difference between myself and where I currently am and see a significant difference. In the world I present as a female. I am a female. This is my background, and this is where I come from. But not many people understood that. And they struggled to understand the concept of identity and conversation of where one's at and everything along those lines. So the question I have to ask, and I'll throw this out there, which one of these photos is a trans woman? They're both photos of a trans woman. And that's the struggle when we talk about the differences and the comparisons of what we see. When we talk about going from one position to another, how does one transform? How do you go from a fundamentalist who literally is preaching about hate in sermons and preaching about creating situations for the LGBT community that's horrible to someone that embraces being a part of that LGBT community? Well, that's because it isn't just about the contrast between the two or the differences between the two as we move. See, what I find is that the sincerity can be found in the shadows. The honesty is found in the gray. Within the shadows, within the gray, one is able to escape the piercing gaze of the sun and the glares of society. The mask falls under the safety of darkness, giving one the ability to explore and understand the underpinnings of humanity. We could go on, and I have this whole story about my past, where I come from, being a fundamentalist, right? I have a very strong fundamentalist foundation. My father was a founder of the creation science movement in Utah. He organized and structured many of the events. We held conferences of over 2,000 people, teaching people about young earth creationism. That's part of my model. That's where I come from, my foundation, my contrast. I come from a very fundamentalist church. As a young kid, I was homeschooled and separated from being a part of the larger community. I grew up in Utah in a town of 99% Mormon as the 1% evangelical. And so that created all sorts of interesting conversations. My brother and I were homeschooled to protect us from public school lies like evolution, fundamentalism, and feminism and sexual education. Everything I learned about life was from that lens of Christian fundamentalism. And so we have this contrast there. As I struggled with my gender and my sexuality, that lens defined me as a depraved being who only could find solace through penance. Self-identification, well, it's an important but difficult to understand in one's hierarchy of needs. Gender is understood through the lens of society and culture, family, biology, individual interactions, and they kind of follow this bimodal curve with a small fraction around the edges. It's a social construct in biology. It's mental, it's self-determined, and it has a physiological foundation. When it matches what's inside to what's on the outside, as you saw in the images, what's internally and how my biology is set up with my brain and everything along those lines in comparison to the way I present externally, it doesn't make much sense. It just fades and it makes sense. It fades into the background. You hardly even notice it. It's kind of like being left-handed in our world. Just like left-handedness, when one can be forced to live within a world not matching one's internal model, it takes an immense amount of effort and constant dedication to write with your right hand if you're left-handed, and you focus on that. But your immense model is overloaded and it's overwhelmed. The term for this in the trans community is called gender dysphoria. It's a concept where what your internal model of who you are as a person doesn't match with what the outside appearance actually is. And just like with left-handedness, it can create an immense amount of exhaustion, as you have to use a lot of overwhelming energy to overwhelm that. See, I had issues with my gender at a very young age. I saw myself in the women around me, and I really wanted to mimic those behaviors. I didn't understand why I couldn't wear a dress, but learned very quickly I had a role to fill, and deviations had very disastrous consequences. At church, I learned that people in the LGBT plus community were the worst of the worst, deserving hell, and were going to be the cause of the downfall of our nation. I heard so many times that men who wore dresses were pedophiles and sexual deviants, deserving of death, that it burned into my psyche that I deserved that death. As a 13 and 14-year-old, I struggled with my identity and where I sat in that space. One hides in the shadows, in the edges, because the glare and the brightness of the sun shines right into who you are as a person. And the definition of how we understand what is dark and light, what is definition of good versus bad, is how our moral systems live. I grew up in a system that was very much on the fundamentalist side. Listening to those stories, who I felt like inside definitely did not match what should be a part of the good side of the light. And it creates this difficulty. I have to, at 13, 14, as I struggled with my gender and I struggled with these things, I read the book, The Scarlet Letter. The Scarlet Letter had a big impact on my life, and you guys can see from the A and from other stuff that I'll show you guys a little bit more. Some of those who've heard my story know a lot more about this. But at 13, after reading The Scarlet Letter, I remembered the A when it was put on Hester's chest, it was used as a way of showing off who she was. This was her condemnation. This was the separation, and this was pushing her into the shadows, separating her from the community that she had. For Dimsdale, the Reverend who had the affair with Hester, he didn't escape. He was able to be a part of the community. He was able to be connected. No one even knew. No one had anything along those lines about what was going on with him and the struggles, and that it was his fault, or he was a part of this, quote unquote, on the shadows, on the gray. And in a fit of rage, he carved an A into his chest, bearing his chest with this A at the very end of the book. During a period of very deep depression for myself, I did the same. So on my left arm, I carved an A into my arm. It was my self-expression for who I was. I heard from my parents this contrast. If you are a true Christian, if you are a good person, if you are a part of the light, then you don't be, you can't be this person. You cannot be a part of the LGBT community. You can't be a part of the handling along those lines. And so that's what I did. And I carved an A into my arm. And as I would struggle with my identity, and as I would struggle with understanding the gray, one of the things that would bring me out of it was that. And there's a quote from the Scarlet Letter that I'll hit real quick. Here she said to herself, the torture of her daily shame would at length purge her soul and work out yet another purity, that which she had lost more saint-light because of the result of martyrdom. I knew that I needed to be this one way. My energy, internal model, and who I was inside had one way of expressing itself, but that didn't match the reality. And I was going to be different. I was going to do everything I can. So I threw myself into creating a life more pure, a life more connected in the light, as we would so say, the light of my community, an upstanding citizen. And I threw myself into Christian ministry. I worked with Child Bachelor Fellowship, started at the age of 13. I went around wordless books, if anyone's are familiar with those. I did those all over the place from the age of 13. And I worked out in mission organizations and stuff along those lines as a kid. My first message I gave was at the age of 13. But the pain and the struggles within the gray, within who I was, kept surfacing and kept coming on out. And as they would, I would dive deeper down inside. At the age of 20, I went to Bible college, and at Bible college, got involved in a lot of ministry and a lot of applications and things along those lines. And I met my partner, Erica, an amazing person who I still love. She's still here with me, and I think she's out in the other room listening to this, and I love her so much. I apologize. This gets really difficult for me as I go through some of these things. I really want to make this kind of clear. There's this delineation line that we love to hold to. We like to hold to the shadows of what is real. And we try and say that, you moved from, let's say, a conservative to a liberal. You moved from this conservative to a progressive. And that's never exactly true. What I think sits more often than not, and I'm kind of jumping and I apologize. Let me get my notes back up here. Is we kind of sit in this gray. See, what happens is whenever we're trying to understand our reality, it is not something that takes a short period of time. I can see my delineation line, and you heard my bio at the beginning. When I left Christianity and I left the ministry, it didn't happen over a short period of time. It took 8 years for me. So from 2008 through 2016, I lived completely and totally within the gray. I struggled with who I was, but I was able to explore, and I was able to ask the questions for for where I was currently sitting. I was able to understand more about myself and able to find that information because things just didn't make sense. I was able to explore and read things like the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita and even the Iliad. I read more of my apologetics and I studied. And I found out that those models and everything were overloaded. What means everything, and this is where I feel like I've just completely lost the track of my story. I apologize. Jay, I kept listening to your thing, and it's got my whole head focused, and I keep trying to tie back to what you were saying today. And it's kind of causing me to revamp. I will say that life is found in understanding the differences between the black and the gray, black and the white, because here's the thing. Community decides whether or not you're a part of the white side or the black side or the dark side, right? You are cast into darkness. You are cast out of the community. And when you're cast out of the community, they separate you completely. And when what you do is to not be cast out, you wear these masks and you wear this tightness and you wear this openness and who you are. And in the understandings of our reality. And what we want to get to with a community and as a society is that we understand that it isn't these delineation lines. It isn't just because I transformed from one side to another side that makes me who I am, makes me a better person, or makes me now viable and accepted within my community. To my father and to my mother, I'm now the social pariah, the social outcast. I'm still in the black to them. But to my communities here, I'm now embraced. What I'm trying to say, and I feel like I'm losing myself, and I wish I could make this clear, is that it's not. I could have been in either case. And what we want community that accepts and understands us from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
We want to understand that even whether you're Republican or not, we're going to build conservative. We're going to build relationships and handling and connections with who you are as the person. You are not the pariah because you voted for Trump. You may have done things that we disagree with, but we need to connect with you and we need to work with you. Yes, you voted for things that hurt me and put me into a position where my life is in jeopardy in areas, but we can still move forward and we can try and figure some of the strategies of how we do that. And that's hard and that's difficult. And I don't have the answers because I want to change the world and I want to see this world finally come together. And I can see that as we try and build these relationships and these bonds with people, so many often that we segregate ourselves into these isolated silos of relationships. This is our community. This is our connections. This is our place. And what happens is those who are on the outskirts of it sit out on the side in the gray, struggling to connect, struggling to be a part of that community and to find it. For me, it was impossible for me to be opened up for who I was as a kid and as a young adult. To share that I was trans would have meant that I would have been an outskirt and a pariah. And now I'm in a community where I can share. And that makes all the difference. If we're going to have community, it cannot be because I changed. It has to be because we as a society work around to communicate and make safe spaces for those who are out in the gray to be able to connect and move forward and to be a part of it. We want people to be able to take the badges of shame, those things that they wear on their chest, The things that hurt them and hold them down, we want them to be able to remove those things and to build into the connection and bring them into that. For me, when I accepted my gender and accepted who I was as a person and I moved forward, it transformed my life and it did make things easier. But it was because, again, that people in the community surrounded me. There's a quote that I like to use from the Scarlet Letter, and I'll throw it up here. She removed the scarlet letter, and taking it, she threw it among the leaves. The stigma gone, she heaved a deep sigh, which the burden of shame and anguish departed. Oh, exquisite relief! She had not known the weight until she felt the freedom. I've had the opportunity to shed that mask and be able to be very clear. I've been able to step forward and live my life in a way of authenticity and connection with others because of the communities I'm in. But that's the important thing. It's not about country club progressivism. It's not about a liberal moving the society forward and maybe even meeting someone's, financial needs. It's about the hug. It's about the connection. It's about the relationships we have inside the walls with each other. It's about knowing, does this person over here have enough food in their cabinet? It's about understanding those things that tie into the relationship so that they can be a part of our community and be a part of the connection with every aspect of who we are. So they can move forward and move out of the gray into the light. But we have to be able to be there and meet them where they're at and be able to move forward and help them and be a part of that conversation. It is about the community and the connection and not about having someone meet a direction that we are expecting for them. For all of us, we all use filters. We all use mental models to perceive our world. And it allows so much for us to get things done and not get buried in the nuance and the noise. We love to isolate and we love to use contrast. All of these filters are flawed and important to consistently validate them for accuracy. As a kid, my personal biblical filter had built-in safeguards to prevent analysis. While far from perfect, the humanism which I now embrace is built on constant questioning and verification. It is set up to autocorrect itself where it can. Well, my past has been a long path with a lot of fears, but humanism and skepticism has provided me with beauty, nuanced models, seeking truth, a world derived by observation and analysis, evidence-based ethics, and real-world compassion, and inclusivity for my human tribe. Instead of focusing on glorifying a completely imperceivable supernatural entity, I found that my life's drive can be found in the individual participation in the service of humane ideals and the relationships and the connections that I have within my community. I can now live my life openly, honestly, and connected with others for a driving world. I'm going to go ahead and end there. And one thing that I always try and end these things to show, because it's easy to talk about moving forward and it is easy to talk about acceptance. That A that I carved into my arm, I have it right here. I didn't just leave it as the A that was there. It is now emblazoned as a symbol on my arm. And I'll put it up on the bigger screen. Because this is how we move forward. We connect in community and we connect. Being myself has allowed me to be alive and to share relationships with others, and I hope that I've done such. And I've been able to take my past and I've been able to move forward. And so thank you all for listening to my talk. I feel it was extremely disjointed. And I didn't cover as much as I wanted to in certain areas, but thank you so much for all you are.
We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We welcome you into the space anytime, Justice. You are loved. You are loved. You are loved. You are loved. I'm so grateful for you sharing not only your story, but moments I think many of us can connect with, moments where we are in our grays, and having to constantly redefine. The gray is always a space to redefine those uncertainties, and become more clear. I know that I want to move us really fast into giving y'all some space so that we can move into the sessions of like Q&A. And I want to hold space and be respectful of our speakers' time. And I want us to also, think about, what kind of questions have stirred up for you as you've listened. Some of us come from a very similar narratives. I think there's, we all have a story, but I want us to be very gentle when we think about our questioning regarding the stories. Okay. I just want to offer that as a sense of, yes, let's be courageous, but also let's be mindful, so that we can hold all the beautiful tension as it relates to our closing. Let us close with this. And let me just say that we're in an incredible time. I'm still probably riding off of this morning. And I'm still riding off of the energy of change. And I see us doing change. So I'm going to invite you for this closing to embrace change. And embrace change, and not only embrace it, but be change. Be change in your heart. Be the change in your mind. Be the change in your body. Be the change for those who have the soul as a part of it. Be the change with your gift. Be the change in your speech. And develop an eye of change, so that you can love others who are in the journey of change. I turn this over to Patty.
Okay, so thank you, Justice. Thank you. So for this time of Q&A, I think I will take us out of the recording. And that way folks will feel freer to share. Is that okay, Jay, to do so? Are you okay with that? And Justice?
Yeah, I think Justice, it's up to you, Justice, if you want to give him that moment. I don't know how many people were there.
Okay.
Do you want that?
So Justice has the video from this morning, if anybody wanted to see just a clip of it.
Oh.
Yep. I think we have 4 minutes. So, I
Yeah.
think, okay, I don't have a problem. We can share it with everyone here.
That'd be great. I had watched some of it this morning, Jay.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Go for it, Justice. I'll let you take it away, and then we'll go into talk.
Okay.
Let me make sure I can share my screen.
Okay. I think you're still sharing screen.
There we go. You should now see it. And let me make sure that audio is getting shared right. Here we go. So you should now have my audio. There you go. You have audio?
So I got to wait till Tuesday. Okay. Oh my God.
Yes, we're
just
good.
need to keep hearing that right there. Hey, you are awesomely awesome, and you're the best. You're the best. Blessed. Just hell. I can't even. I don't even know what to say.
Had a vision for 20 in the morning, thinking of my little sister in morning, struggling with realities, no maladies, holidays are the same, everything's changed. No Bowie, no Prince, and no Michael, no Andre Crouch and the Disciples, no Walter Edwin or Deborah Coley, no Whitney, no George Michael. Toys R Us gone bankrupt. Damn, they could toss it and went bankrupt. Everything from my childhood's missing, man. Man, I swear it's such a fucked up feeling, man. I'm not mad, it's a simple observation. And I'm not sad, but it's not a celebration. I'm just trying to put the pieces back together, man. Everything's falling through my fingers like sand. It seems a tighter that I'm gripping. It seems the more that I am slipping. I feel like I lost everything I love. And where is the legend of agape love? And churches ain't the same. Gospel music just ain't the same. R&B, it just ain't the same. But y'all keep telling me it's the same. But I ain't feeling nothing, damn it. And I don't wanna reach up and grab it. Shots fired, get to ducking. see me standing out here alone. That's why I wrote this song, because I know I'm not alone. What are we out here doing? What are we out here saying? People don't care no more. So forget I don't care no more. This is too much for you to handle. I was always too much to handle. There ain't nothing new about me. You don't want authenticity. You don't want sincerity. 2020 brought me clarity. Now I see who you really are. No mask wearing, mailbox record, racist motherfucker. Let's go. Homie, you don't really want it. Sis, you don't really want it. I'm your nightmare opponent. Walking in a new anointing. Walking past all your bullets. Nothing in your trigger bullet. Try and pull it again. No weapon missed again. Tired of talking about changes. Tired of going through changes. Lie after lie. Lie after lie. Republicans and the Democrats. Prime ministers and bureaucrats. Senators and aristocrats. HBO and Cinemax. Film the babies in the cages. Babies dying in the cages. I ain't forgot about the cages. And if you did, then you're a racist. Call it out like it is. Call it out like it is. We've been indoors for a year. And we're heading for another year. Lights off for cologne. High interest student loans. Living in a pandemic. Calculated and systemic. Start with black folks first. Kill that melanin first. Press us down and we pop up. Press us down and we pop back up. Speaking of getting it poppin', I heard you wanna get it poppin'. 400 years picked up. I guess you really wanna get picked up. We ain't playing with that ass. I'll get all up in that ass. Been doing wrong for too long. Time to sing a brand new song. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty. We're free at last. Free of all of your religion. All of your European religion. All of your bad decisions. All of your wicked intentions. It didn't work back then. Ain't gonna work now. We were people back then, but we get rowdy now. Let's get ready to rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. Sick of being here anyway. Can somebody shout shine? Shine! Shine!
Thank you, Justice. Thank you so much.
Whew. Yeah. Wow.
Thank you. Well, it is all yours. The questions, Q&A. Thank you so much I really appreciate you sharing that. Actually, it's amazing. It's funny. I didn't even get a chance to see myself. So I just.
Absolutely amazing.